Hello and welcome to the Triskel Arts Centre podcast. My name is Chris O'Neill. I'm the head of cinema here at Triskel. And from the 19th to the 22nd of October, we are hosting a season of films directed by Katt Shea. And I'm delighted to say that Katt is going to join us here for a discussion about her work. So, first of all, before I say anything else, thank you so much, Katt, for finding the time to join us.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you're still interested.
Well, they're wonderful films, and I've been wanting to do this for some time, so I'm glad that I'm finally getting a chance to do so now here at Triskel. But we're screening four of your films over four consecutive days, beginning with your directorial debut, Strip to Kill, followed by Dance of the Damned. Then we are screening Poison Ivy, and finally, The Rage, Carrie 2. So those are the four films in the season. Before you made your directorial debut with Strip to Kill, I believe you were also an actor in several films and you also shot some second unit. But Strip to Kill was your first film as a director, which I think was shot maybe autumn 1986.
I don't know, actually. I don't remember what year it was.
Yeah,
Uh,
I did some research. I think that's what it was anyway.
okay.
So we'll see. The internet's not always reliable. Hopefully that's the case that it was reliable
Oh, I wish I
information.
could be there for your days. That sounds so cool. And it's just great. I'm
Yeah.
really, I'm really
Well,
happy about
thank
that.
you. Thank you
I'm
so
sorry,
much.
what was your question?
Sorry, so I'm about to lead on to my question there. First question. Strip club dancers are the focus of Strip to Kill, your first film. And it really comes across on screen that you respected the artistry of the routines that these dancers went through and put on, and that you wanted to capture that artistry on film. Would you say that's a fair assumption?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the inspiration for making the movie, was that I really saw the dancers as artists, you know. I mean, they were just using this venue that because it's what they had. So to express their artistry. And that really inspired me to I'd make a film about it because I just thought nobody knows this. Like nobody knows this is going on. But you know, it is Los Angeles, and there are a lot of artists in Los Angeles who, you know, don't have an outlet for their art. And that's what I saw.
While the idea of a murder mystery with exotic dancers was no doubt appealing to the producer, Roger Corman, did it take some time to actually get him to greenlight the project?
Oh yeah, it really did. You know, I knew Roger because I had starred in a couple of movies for him. In one of them, I even shot some second unit. It was with a director in the Philippines who just kind of gave me a camera and said, okay, you want to shoot something? Go ahead. So I ended up doing that. And then after, okay, this is what happened. Andy Rubin and I made a bet. We were having dinner together, and he told me that mussels were poisonous during certain times of the year and I shouldn't order them. So I didn't believe him. I thought he was just messing with me, you know. And so I lost the bet. He made a bet with me, and his punishment of, to me for losing the bet was I had to go to a strip club. So that, you know, that was his big punishment. It was like I was a college girl, and, you know, that would make me really uncomfortable. And so that's what I had to do. So I ended up going to the body shop on Sunset Boulevard, and he was waiting somewhere like in a coffee shop or something like that. I don't remember specifically, but I had to go in there by myself. And of course, they mistook me for an off-duty stripper. Like, you know, what are you doing here? You want a job? So, so I found a table and I started watching the acts, and I was really blown away. By the artistry. I was like, I expected something so different and kind of gross and, you know, not very appealing. But what I saw were artists who were using this venue to express themselves. And I stayed for the second set. And I think Andy was probably pacing around. He never came in, though. That was the weird thing. He never came in to like go, what happened to you? I went out and he was out there already smoking a cigar, standing on the street smoking a cigar. And I said, I have an idea for a movie that is going to blow your mind. That was it. I really wanted to show them as artists. I felt that had never been done. And I had never seen in a movie or anywhere dancers flying around a pole, you know. Now my claim to fame is I brought pole dancing into, the modern world or something. But at the time, that was just so cool.
And once you pitched it to Roger Corman, what was his response to it?
Well, I don't remember. I didn't call for a specific meeting because I didn't think I would get it, to pitch because he knew me as an actor. I actually I staked out a place on the street in my car, and I could see into his window. Like he was in Brentwood, and he was on San Vicente Boulevard, and there was this big picture window, and his back was to it. That was his office. But I knew that every day he went out for lunch. He would leave his office and go down the street and get a sandwich or something. So at that point, I ran around the block, saw him get up from his chair. I figured he was going to walk down the street, and then I accidentally ran into him. And I went, Roger, you remember me? Of course I remember you, right? So I said, I have got an idea for a movie. It will knock your socks off. And I described strippers flying around this pole. I go, you can't believe what they do. You can't believe it. And they're strippers. So I really pushed the exploitive elements
Mhm.
of it. I didn't say they're artists. They he just want to hear that. He, he wants to hear they're strippers and they're flying around a pole above the patrons' heads. So I said it's going to be great. I got this is the movie poster. And he said, come in Monday morning and pitch me the idea. So that is what I did. But I was really nervous about it because I did it by myself, even though Andy and I were going to write it together. He wanted me to come in and pitch it. So I did. And then Andy was the one who said to me, tell him you will direct it because Andy had been through enough situations of being a writer and having directors really mess up the script, like not follow the script, do something else. And the movies weren't very good. And the
Mhm.
scripts were good. The scripts were really solid. So, and I was like, I'll tell him I'm going to direct it. Are you out of your mind? And I said, no. I said, I'm not going to do that. And then I'm in the meeting pitching the story, and Roger is interested. He's like, really, he's really enjoying this. And then at the end, and I go, and I'll direct it. So I didn't even expect that to come out of my mouth, but it did. The only experience I had directing was I directed plays in my backyard when I was 12 years old and charged all the parents in the neighborhood, $5 to see their kid in a play. So it was a money-making situation for me. So it's just one of those wild things. But it wasn't that easy, okay? He was really interested. And he said, he told me he was really interested. So put it together, do a presentation, which I did. And I showed it to him. He was still very interested, but he said he couldn't do it because he didn't believe a man could play a woman in a movie and have it be believable, especially as a stripper. And this was before the crying game. So there was, there wasn't, I couldn't point to that and go, oh yeah, look at that. So I started sending him pictures of real girls and transgender people in very skimpy clothing and would say, which one's the real girl? And it was like a masher, like it was really insane. He would get mail in the mail, okay? Not in the email, but
Mhm.
in the actual mail. So it looked even weirder. We didn't have email then. But it kept his interest. It really did keep his interest. And then I even brought in a female impersonator from a club in Los Angeles called La Cage aux Folles. And these female impersonators were so incredible. They would impersonate Cher or Barbara Streisand, people like this. So I went there and I talked to one of the young guys and I said, "Can you do this and wear a G-string?" And he said, "Yeah." And I go, "Well, could I bring you into the producer's office and you would explain how that is done?" And so I get a meeting with Roger. I go, there's someone you need to meet who's really going to help you understand how we can pull this off. And so this young guy is so sweet. He was really nervous. And, Roger's very proper. He was a very proper gentleman, you know. Even though he made these movies, actually, he was a Rhodes Scholar and he's just a very proper guy and very polite and well spoken. And so he made people nervous. So anyway, this poor guy goes into this long, lengthy detail about what he does with his junk with the G string, and Roger just turning purple. And he threw me out of his office and he said, "You can do the movie, just get out." So that was phenomenal. I was like, wow, we can do the movie. This is just amazing. And Andy was really excited. He was going to write it. He would be a producer on it. I would work that out. And 3 hours later, Roger calls on the phone and says, "You can't do it. Forget it. It's not happening." And I just went, I was in my 20s. I was pretty young. And I just went, "No, we're doing it. We're doing this, Roger. We're doing it, and it's going to be phenomenal. You're going to be so proud of it, and we're doing it." And he hung up, and that was that. I mean, I had the last word, which was incredible. But, I mean, it was rough. The entire thing was extremely rough. There was a point after I was done shooting where he saw first cut, and he thought, it was 2 hours long. You don't show Roger that they didn't tell me the rules. See, here's the thing. The executives at New Horizons, I don't think they liked me too much because I sort of cut in front of the line. Like there was a line of 5,000 people to direct movies for Roger, and all of a sudden I was an actor in a couple movies of his, and then I cut to the front of the line, you
Mhm.
know? So they didn't tell me some of the secrets that you don't do, right? And one of them was you don't show Roger a 2-hour rough cut because you just leave things out. It's an hour and a half, that's it. And then he'll tell you to put stuff in or take stuff out, whatever that was. So I showed him this cut and he was furious. He was just furious with me. He said, "I thought you were smart." That was the worst insult he ever said to me. "I thought you were smart." It was just a crazy time, but it ended up working out very well for him. It made a lot of money. It saved New Horizons, I think. That's what I'm told.
Mhm.
It really it saved the company from bankruptcy or something like that. I'm
Mhm.
not exactly sure if that's the case, but it's something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it was a big film, say in France, in played theatrically for a while.
Right. It
Yeah,
was the number one film in France
blimey.
for a long time, I guess. And these are only things I hear, and I wish I could really experience and see it for myself. But, I just would hear it. And it was exciting to hear, but, it never feels real
Mhm.
unless you see it. So,
Obviously, we're going to cover several of your films that we're showing, so I don't want to stay just too long on talking about the one film, but just have one or two more questions about Strip to Kill before we move on, if that's okay.
sure.
Well, first of all, I think the acting is uniformly excellent in the film. and you've got established actors, you've got like non-actors. I believe the dancers were non-actors, for
Right.
example.
The
Um,
non-actors, yes.
yeah. So, how was that working with both like established actors and actor like people you were getting to be actors for the first time?
Right. Well, I had some rehearsal time. So what I did with that rehearsal time was I worked with the actual exotic dancers in my living room and gave them acting class, which was wild all on its own because they were wild children, you know. They were crazy. They were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. They'd show up or they wouldn't show up. They, got involved with a boy and then got distracted, or, there were just a lot of things going on. One of them stayed in my spare bedroom. It was Deborah Nasser because she had a drinking problem and she really wanted to be in the movie. I wanted her to be in the movie. So she said she'd stop drinking if she could be in the movie. And so she was in the, oh, it was so crazy. I had a pole put up in my garage so they could practice the pole dancing. And then we worked on a play. What was the play called? It was about sorority girls. It's a famous play about sorority girls
Is it
because it had enough parts in it
is it
for
Vanities?
it's it was Vanities, I think. It
Mhm.
was Vanities, right. And so they worked on Vanities. It's so funny. But yeah. And during the day and then in the afternoons they'd work on pole work. And I hired a choreographer who I just heard from him too. His name is Ted. But I didn't want him to choreograph dances for them. I wanted it to be their act. It had to be their act that they devised. And then he would just put it in a certain order so that I could shoot it. Or, offer some ideas that might improve it, but not change it. That was very important to me that he didn't change what they did. And, I did have some, dropouts. One of my favorite dancers crashed and burned. So I don't know, and I replaced her, but I ended up replacing her with Tracy, who did all the gymnastics. But she was a real stripper too. She was doing those gymnastic routines in her act. So it was incredible.
Oh, I mean, it sounds like quite a situation to take on for your first feature, and dealing with
Yeah.
these situations, these personalities, and the enthusiasm, yet not always going to be dependable and things. So, but then on the other hand, you had one of my favorite actresses, Kay Lenz, in the lead.
Yes. Well, that helps a lot to have somebody as professional as Kay Lenz and Greg Evigan because they were fabulous to work with. They were so supportive and they were just great. Kay Lenz told me I was her favorite director. I mean, she worked with Clint Eastwood, so it was like, wow, thanks. That's great. And Greg Evigan was so lovely to work with. They were just so nice, which is not always the case, and especially when I'm having to work with people that don't know what they're doing. They've never been in front of the camera. They've never hit marks with a lot of pressure. I mean, it's always, I teach actors now, and one of the things I have to really prepare them for is how difficult it is to go on set because the energy is so intense. Sometimes there's a lot going on. They can be behind schedule. The director may not be getting what they want. The director could be under pressure from the producer. There can be so many things going on that are being juggled, and the actor comes in going, okay, I'm ready to do my part. They're all excited and they're going, oh no, this doesn't feel right. And you have to go right past that. And that's what these very new, very green dancers were doing. They had to get past that. And I was making a very protective space for them to do that. And so was Kay, and so was Greg. They were just so great about it. And so we try to keep it a secret, all the crazy stuff that was going on behind the scenes, because there's crazy stuff on Corman movies. There's just not enough time. Things don't go right. You're always, it's so hard because, you're spending 2 hours lighting a scene and you got 15 minutes to shoot it. It's such an odd balance. So you know, it's crazy. It's crazy. And they were wonderful.
One of the strong things about Strip to Kill, I think, is the chemistry between Kay and Greg, you know. And also with your next film, Dance with the Damned, I also thought the two leads in that film also had nice chemistry as well. So chemistry between actors, even if you have a two great actors, chemistry is something that you just can't create. You need to know if it works, if it's there. Would you maybe comment about like trying to find that in actors?
Yes. When I was younger, I studied to be a hypnotherapist. And in part of that study, they taught us that every individual was either a physical or an emotional. Now, those are very odd terms to just attach to people, and it takes a very, very long time to understand it. But I can sort of compare it to like a warm, physical warm, and emotional cool. So that I would always try to put together those two because two physicals don't go together, two emotionals don't go together. Physicals and emotionals go together. So I would always try to determine what the people were. And maybe it's easier for people to understand it on the level of warm and cool, but also try to imagine like, okay, um, Travis Kelsey is a physical, right?
Hmm.
He's a big, well, and not all physicals are like this, a very extreme example, okay? And Taylor Swift is an emotional, like expresses everything emotionally. Everything is, and he expresses things physically. Well, that is chemistry. Now,
Hmm.
this is a very extreme example of it, but Greg Elegant is a physical, like the warm energy and all that. And Kay Lenz is an emotional, very thoughtful, expresses things in a very vulnerable way, you know,
Hmm.
allows that vulnerability to shine through. So I hope I'm explaining it so that people can understand. But that is what I would always try to do in every single movie is really match the people.
Hmm.
So that because if you have two emos together, there's no spark, right? Or two physicals together, there's no spark.
Hmm.
They repel. It's like magnets, it's like the magnets. That's what I do every movie.
Yeah, no,
I
and I
match.
think yeah, oh no, that's a great explanation. Thank you. But with your next film, Dance of the Damned, it's a story about a vampire and an exotic dancer. But when you initially were approached to do it, was that always the idea that you guys had that you and Andy to do
No.
it?
No, it wasn't. Okay, so I was kind of done with the whole exotic dancer thing. It's like, I said my piece and that was it. I have nothing more to say about it. But of course, Roger made a lot of money with those with Strip to Kill, and he wanted to continue to use that idea. So we had an idea that we were going to make a movie about a person who had AIDS, who couldn't touch, couldn't express sexually, and was dying, and a waitress who was suicidal. So that was our idea. It was going to be really deep, thoughtful movie. And then Roger said, no, it's going to be a stripper. And, you know, you're going to have to figure out the guy because that an AIDS guy is not going to work. So forget it. So we have the vampire, the exotic dancer. So, but we still, we still were able to make it deep and, the vampire had a lot of issues and so did Jody, our dancer. So
Well,
that's how that came about.
do you think the kind of low budget B movie genre, do you think that there can be a lot of scope to explore issues, but kind of coded, kind of hidden, maybe as subtext?
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. If the filmmakers are there, if the filmmakers are deep, thoughtful people who have something to say, it's going to come out. Now, a lot of that does, I mean, there's a lot of empty B movies too, where they just think they're making it for a certain audience, and this is what that audience wants, which is no way to make a movie. But yeah, I mean, I think every movie that we made came from a very passionate place of wanting to convey something, wanting to show something to the world that maybe they didn't see before. I grew up in Michigan, and it was a very, very protected kind of environment, sheltered, I would say. And so I was always fascinated by the underbelly because I didn't know about it. It was fascinating to me. And thank goodness that coincided with Roger's agenda. It just happened to coincide. So, yeah, I mean, I think I was always looking for answers. Why do you live like this? What's beneath it? Who are these people? I don't know you. I want to know you. It was that kind of thing. Yeah, Streets was like that. That was really, I went and I stayed on the beach in Venice for like, I don't know, it was at least a week. And I would stay until like 11 o'clock at night. It was like, so I was living there too. There's a lot of people living there, right? And I made friends with the people that were living on the streets. And they didn't know Andy would pick me up around 11 o'clock at night. And I was getting to know them because I wanted to find out who they were. The character Dawn is actually a real girl that we found, and she was a heroin addict. And we tried to help her get off heroin, but that wasn't going to work. I don't know what happened to her.
Mhm.
We also found a girl who was homeless and pregnant, and we actually got her an apartment. We got her an apartment so
Mhm.
that till she had the baby, and it was a real cheap apartment, but I don't think she stayed though. I think I remember that she kind of abandoned it. So there were a lot of, you get really involved. So it's not like, okay, I'm just making a B movie about, street people and I'm going to make this stuff up, you know? You can't make this stuff up. So these were kind of real people that we based it on.
Well, I think that that quality that you're mentioning there, like earlier on when we were talking about Strip to Kill and talking about the dedication of working with the non-actors to get performances, and then you're talking here about when you made your film Streets, all the research you did. Like you don't go half cocked into a project. You really seem to like try to do your research, really get into the thick of it, and really present something credible. And I think that's a great quality about your films. Like even if we're talking about lower budget films or fifth thriller or horror or something, there's still a credibility to the characters and the locations, I think. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's still interest in your films. And that's why I want to kind of host them this season because that is a wonderful quality, and that's why I think, as you were saying there, the B movie level of filmmaking can be great, but then some filmmakers kind of just go for the bare minimum, whereas you obviously gave 110%, you know. So, sorry, maybe that's just a bit of a tangent rather than a question, but it is a quality I think that is in your work.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's nice when it's recognized, so it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a B movie genre is fantastic because, it gives you the opportunity to do it without the pressure of a studio, second guessing you,
Hmm.
or making it for the masses and that sort of thing.
Hmm. Well, just to jump back a little bit, so if I'm correct in the timeline, maybe I'm wrong. I think it was Strip to Kill, Dance of the Damned, then Strip to Kill 2,
Right.
and then it was Streets and Poison Ivy, and you went from there. So three of your films are back-to-back films about exotic dancers, and then with Streets, with Poison Ivy, and some of your following films, such as The Rage, Carrie 2, you're dealing with troubled teenagers, in different situations and things. And do you think that there's in the industry, there tends to be a narrow-minded in its view of what a filmmaker can do?
Absolutely, especially women. You know, it's unbelievable. I mean, they wouldn't let me do a movie that starred a man. I mean,
Mm,
it was ridiculous. It was like you can only do movies that star, yeah, strippers or teenage girls. And that, I constantly, would only get calls to direct movies. We're looking for a woman director. I go, well, I'm just a director, so I don't know what you want. That seems odd to me. I think everybody I talked to was interested in talking to me would say we're looking for a woman director. It was really hard to get a job, even after the success of Poison Ivy.
do you think in recent years, because now there is more of a surge in female directors getting their chance, do you think there's a genuine change in the attitude, or is it let's appear that we're changing our attitude? Do you know what I mean?
That's a really complicated question because there is some sincerity. I think it's gone now. The political climate has changed. But with the Biden administration, there was definitely a push for equality. I do think Hollywood studios were trying on some level to have more women direct and be in lead positions in filmmaking. There were incentives for that. But what happened, because we live in a very sexist society, and I think there's very few societies that are not sexist. I think there might be some Native American societies that really truly are working truly for equality, but I don't know that any current societies really are. The problem with it happens that yes, they would hire female directors, but it was very hard for the female directors to move on from that hire. After Poison Ivy, I didn't work for 6 years, and I met with every studio head in the business who said they wanted to work with me. We want to be in business with you. This is how they talk to you. We want to be in business with you. What do you want to do? So everything that I suggested, they didn't want to do. And then anything they sent me, I would meet with them on, and then they would hire a male director like Michael Mann. Do you know what I mean? Like that was like that. Except for Jeff Kleeman at United Artists, who was always a champion of mine. And he would bring me in for movies, but then the head of the studio would bring in a guy at the last minute. Jeff would say, I've got this movie for you. And then at the last minute, I would hear, oh, I'm so sorry. They've hired Ian Softly. It's okay. All right, that happened. Then Carrie 2 happened, The Rage Carrie 2, they were firing the director. Now, that was a given. That was going to happen. Whether I stepped in or not, The only difference being if I stepped in, the movie would not get shut down and, never finished. If I stepped in, everybody got to keep their jobs and the movie would be released. So it seemed like, the right thing to do here is to do that. Now, I had no prep time and I left California on a Thursday to go to North Carolina to start shooting on Monday. And was reading the script on the plane. I mean, I read it once, but I was really reading it on the plane. But my experience with Roger Corman was so thorough that really, Roger used to say, I could drop you into the middle of a foreign country with a camera and you could come back with a movie. And he's right. It's like they had a couple of assistants, maybe a few actors, and he's right. So I got ready. I was shooting on Monday. The funny thing was, though, he had been shooting for 2 weeks, and they said, well, we want you to keep that footage and just shoot the rest of the movie. So I was like, so you want me to match the footage that you're firing somebody for? And I go, no, I got to start over. So I did, sort of the Roger Corman thing when I go, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do it right. It's very intense. It's crazy. But the thing was too, I mean, going into it, I thought, oh my God, Carrie too. They're offering me Carrie too. I thought I'm going to get crucified for making this movie. This is Brian De Palma. And, this is a classic movie. This is a classic novel. This is, the geniuses of our time wrote. And I'm going to do part two, but I hadn't worked. I was never going to work again. That's what it looked like to me. I was being shut out. So I went and I did it. And I had a blast. I also brought in Don Morgan to shoot it. And he was so much fun because he was, at that point, you had a quote from me saying, you're shooting at the speed of thought. That's what's happening. And, you just have to be very, very intuitive and follow it and just go for it. And Don, it's funny, he was in his 60s, but he was on fire. He was on fire over that because I would just say, okay, I go, Don, this is how we're going to shoot it. This is she's going to come down and then you got to move the camera here, I want it to really fast, chop, chop, chop. And, and he said to me, he goes, oh my God, he goes, we did that so fast, I got lost. I don't know where we are. The script said, she didn't know where we were. I go, that's great because we are going to mess with the audience's mind like that, right? And then Don's going, oh my God, I have landed in paradise, So it just gets really fun, especially because it's a horror movie. And so, the visuals can be so wild. You can't do this in a straight drama. I can't do this in Sharing the Secret, although I did a little bit. A straight drama, you really need kind of a horror genre to be able to let loose like that.
It was interesting. There was a quote actually. I think it was in the audio commentary for when you were referring to the Rage Carry 2. And you
Ah,
said, I'm not a subtle director in regards to working in, in horror genre. But even in those circumstances, I think you're a thoughtful director. And I think that quality really comes through. And especially in, say, something like The Rage Carry 2, what I liked about it was, in contrast to the original Carrie, was the central character. I think her name's Rachel
mhm.
in Carrie 2, yes. And yes, it's the same sort of premise, but she's different. She's presented different. She's not quite as vulnerable. It's not just a carbon copy of what was there before. And I mean, that's a quality I really like about the sequel. And in fact, I think all the little details, like even Mina Severi's very short appearance, like even for the small amount of time she's on screen, you get a sense of her character. All the characters in the film have these little qualities that make them memorable and make them stand out from one another. And I
Mhm.
said, I think that thoughtfulness is another quality that really comes through in your films, like all of them, all of the ones I've seen.
Well, I teach an acting class, and in in what I try to convey to actors, I'm not teaching the actors, I'm directing, but what I try to convey to them is a real freedom to explore the character, whichever direction it takes them. So, to explore the ugliness of the character or the beauty of the character, the heart of the character. And so they have a lot of freedom. I want them to really feel free to bring that to life, you know.
Mhm.
So that's real strong on set. And that's why I think I don't have to do a million takes of something. I usually get it, honestly, in like the first to the third take. Maybe there's 10 takes, but not usually. And very rarely are there more than that because they have a lot of freedom to begin with. And I get them loosened up before they go on, you know?
Yeah, and I think that really comes across that you get a certain energy, a certain vibrancy in those first couple of takes, I think, whereas well, someone like Kubrick prefers to almost take that energy out and play with something else. Whereas in your films, I like that energy, and I think that energy feeds into not just the performances, but the way the films are in general. You know, the whole films have an energy, and those
Yeah,
performances
real
add to it.
energetic. Yeah, because you know what? I'm terrible, but watching films, if it's slow or it doesn't have the energy, it takes the juice out of it for me.
Mhm.
I want that energy, and so you know what? I do some of my training with real actors on set. I said I didn't, but I actually do.
Mhm.
And I do exercises with them and I get them really freed up, really free. And so they feel like they can't do anything wrong. So once you've got an actor that feels like they can do anything that happens for them in the moment and they can't do anything wrong, there are no mistakes, you get a really freed up performance and an energetic performance because I don't want them in their head. If they're in their head too much, it slows things down too much. But there are moments when you do want to slow down. And then it makes those moments so much stronger. But if you're slowing everything down, so everybody gets all these wheels turning all the time, it just flattens it.
Mhm.
So I want those moments that we really want that depth and that heart, or what's going on in the eyes, or what's going on in the brain, and the wheels are turning. I want the movie to be able to slow down for that. And then you go, oh, this is something important, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
In recent interviews, you were saying how you wouldn't have made, say, Streets as violent as it was, or maybe if you were to make it today, or Poison Ivy, maybe you wouldn't even make it at all today. What would be the reasoning for that kind of change in opinion?
Well, I just don't want to put that out in the world. That's all. And the violence, I don't want to do a violent movie unless it's like funny,
Mhm.
and everybody knows it's funny and it's not, but, going to influence anybody. But we do influence people. That's the thing. We watch movies and we watch TV and we watch the news, and this stuff does affect us and it does go in. And so I don't want to contribute to the negativity anymore. I want to just put out stuff that's positive, that makes you feel good or makes you think in more positive directions.
No, I understand that. I appreciate that. I mean, I mean, my daughter's only 3 years old, but in a couple of years' time, I can see myself watching your Nancy Drew film with her. Probably not going to be watching Poison Ivy anytime soon. You know what I
Right.
mean? So,
How old would she be for you to show her Nancy Drew?
oh, good question. I don't know, maybe 9 or 10.
Okay.
What kind of age group did you envision it for when
Okay,
you
well,
made
I
it?
was supposed to make it for 7-year-olds, but I think I
Hmm.
overshot it by a couple of years.
Hmm.
Um, because kids here in Los Angeles and Los Angeles County, I mean, they're watching it when they're 7. So it's like, I, I don't know, but I wish if I could go back now, because actually, Jeff Kleeman produced that. And he was trying to get me to take some of the ghost stuff, so the scary pig face and stuff. He was trying to get me to tone that down, and I was really resisting. So, not in a bad way, but
Hmm.
I'm working with him, but shoot, sometimes you see things in retrospect, and I would like 7-year-olds to be able to watch it. But maybe that would be too scary for them. It's so hard to know because kids are so jaded, and then some of them aren't. Some of them are really innocent. I would like to make movies for those little innocent ones. So I kind of blew it by 2 years.
Hmm.
I think.
I,
I think maybe 9 or 10 is fine because then you can say it's just a movie. It's not real.
hmm.
Big is not out the window, right? But the actors were so good that you kind of believe everything.
Yeah, again, lovely chemistry with those young actors. It was really nice.
We did some rehearsal before that, just playing around a lot and doing exercises with it and really freeing them up, freeing them up. I get everybody as free as I can get them to be. Even the guy who played the cop, he said to me, this is the best set I've ever been on. I'm so free. I feel so free. I go, that's right on. Keep it, keep going. So,
Well, I won't keep you much longer, Kat. Just one or two more questions, if that's okay.
sure.
But just to go back to Poison Ivy, if I remember correctly, because I remember when the film came out, it was probably Drew Barrymore's first film she did as a teenager after a couple of years, because
Ah,
everybody remembered her when she was younger, when she was in E.T. and
ah.
Firestarter, and obviously there was a break there for a while. But could you maybe just say something about working with her? Because I mean, everyone in the film's great, but wow, she's a firecracker in that movie.
No one even knew what she looked like at that point because she had been out of the business. I had to fight for her to cast her because New Line didn't really want her. They thought, the baggage, and I go, I like the baggage. This is great baggage. Perfect for Ivy. So I had to fight for her. And I remember being in this conference room where the entire executive staff came in to like ogle her with Bob Shea and Sarah Rich, and they're staring at her, and Bob is asking her questions like, why do you think you're right for this part? And I'm like, oh my God. And I held her hand under the table and her hand was shaking. I let them ask a couple questions and she answered them. And then finally I go, okay, and that's the end of this interview. And then they ignored me completely and kept asking questions. And then, Drew kind of warmed up into it after that, because, whenever you feel supported, she was so supported by me. And I think they were just, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know. So weird. But anyway, she got the part.
This is a general kind of one. I'll just ask one or two general questions, I suppose, because this is something I always find fascinating with filmmaking, because you're making a movie, you spend all your time and effort like putting it together and casting and filming, editing, etc., and then it's finished, and then it goes
Mhm.
out to the world. But then you have the people who are releasing the film, the distributors, marketing it. a
Oh,
certain way, you know. Do you have any kind of thoughts on when it comes to films being marketed, is there a real sort of discourse between what the filmmaker envisions and what the marketing people kind of see?
not at all. They don't care. They don't
Hmm.
care what you did. They are on a whole different track. And it was so painful that they sold Poison Ivy as an erotic thriller because that is not what it was. It was a friendship between two girls and needs not being met by really a society that leaves kids to their own devices, and it had a very strong point of view about a family divided falling. So, to me, it was this really deep, dark story that really had a lot of social commentary. And then they sold it as an erotic thriller. I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. It really, it kind of destroys you in a way. It's like you see that and just go, what was I doing for, over a year of my life here? Pretty devastating, honestly.
Well, at least something that was really positive was obviously people picked up on the film because if I remember correctly, that Poison Ivy, for example, played at Sundance. Did it play at Sundance?
Yes, it did.
And then,
So
of course, oops.
thankfully, they weren't looking at the marketing, they were looking at the
Hmm.
film, you
Hmm.
know. So that was wonderful. It played at Sundance and it's recognized now, but it has all these sequels that are just, you know, sexploitation. So
But around this time, if I'm correct, was it around the time in Poison Ivy that there was the retrospective at MoMA and also at the British Film Institute in the UK? So
mm,
even within these in a relatively short period of time, some major film curators are recognizing something in your work.
yeah, I didn't
And
know about this. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. Do you
In
know?
fact, the New York premiere of Poison Ivy was at MoMA. So it was incredible.
Mhm.
Was wonderful. I mean, so there's this whole wonderful side that's happening, and then you get a punch or a kick in the gut. It's like, oh, it's just an erotic thriller, right? But I mean, that's the nature of doing things for that millions of people are going to see, which
Mhm.
you know, I'm so amazed that I got to make art that millions of people have seen.
Mhm.
A lot of people, it's made them very happy. Poison ivy makes a lot of people happy, which is crazy to me. But thank goodness, I'm really grateful for that, you know.
Mhm.
But what happened, I really didn't, I wasn't offered anything after that, except to do Poison Ivy 2, which they wanted to be, exploitation. So I turned that down, but I probably should have taken it. But I didn't know. Nobody knew. My agent didn't know. My lawyer didn't know. They didn't know that as a female, I wasn't going to move forward. Nobody knew this. They didn't know I was going to be stopped. And
Mhm.
as not just me, but all the females at that time who had very successful movies, um, number one movies, Pet Cemetery, my friend Mary Lambert directed that and couldn't get a job afterwards. And there are more, I'm just naming that. But, I had to go back and make a movie for Roger Corman after I did Poison Ivy.
Mhm.
And then I did do The Rage Carried to You, but I didn't work for 17 years. And during that time, I changed. You know what I mean? Like 17 years is a long time. So you have a long time to grow and, realize who you are and that sort of thing. And I don't have any regrets, and I'm not bitter. I'm not at all bitter. It is, this is my path. And it's a wonderful path, and I'm really grateful for it. And I'm so grateful that people loved the movies and so many people saw them and all that stuff. But I did change, and I didn't want to make movies that perhaps influenced anybody in a negative way. So it was amazing when I had really made that change deep inside of me. And then I was offered out of the blue 17 years later by Jeff Kleeman, the Nancy Drew the Hidden Staircase.
Mm,
So it was just beautiful because it fits so beautifully into what I wanted to put out into the world. And
mm,
then magically, Christina Peters at Netflix and Harry Lachine hired me to do Rescue by Ruby with Dan Angel producing. And my amazing manager that's managed to still be there after 17 years, JD Sobel. Well, anyway.
mm. Do you have any other film projects on the horizon? I mean, maybe you can't talk about them, but I presume you still have other ideas and other projects you
Well,
like to do?
there's stuff that I would love to do, but as I said, you can have a really super successful movie, such as Rescue by Ruby, which was super successful on Netflix. You know what? It's hard. It's a hard business, and it's hard being a director. I would love for it to be equally hard for men and women. I don't think we're quite there yet, but it is hard, and I would love to do another movie, and I have all these ideas, but I don't know that there's anything really on the horizon. There is a really fun script that Alexia Malocci is producing called The Adventures of Joey Coletta. That's really a sweet movie about a kid in the 50s who gets on a TV show in the 1950s, and he's the kid, you know,
Hmm.
and it's really sweet. It's about his family, his family dynamics. So
Oh, let's hope that works out and it works out soon for you.